Emily Trant, 28 years old, the eldest daughter in a family that has always valued reputation and achievement above all. Almost my entire life, I was labeled a failure, someone who was never good enough or right enough for my parents. They never once showed pride in me, not even once. That night, I sat quietly at the last table at my brother's engagement party, pretending to smile while every eye was looking elsewhere. No one in my family thought to introduce me to the guests, only throwing out shallow remarks like, "That girl still hasn't accomplished anything." I was used to being looked down on until my brother's fiancée suddenly walked over, looked at me surprised, and whispered, "Wait, aren't you the founder of Luminatech?" The entire room fell silent instantly. Even my mother was stunned, speechless. Have you ever been branded a failure by your own family? Share your story in the comments. I believe there are more people who need to be heard than you think. I grew up in the suburbs of a modest-sized city where everyone knows each other, and no one hesitates to ask about the neighbors' children's achievements. My family, the Trants, are known for being traditional, always emphasizing the values of education, social status, and stability. My father is a branch manager at a bank, a strict Asian man who lives by rules and apparently never knows how to smile at his daughter. He believes success means stability, a clear job, good income, and no foolish dreaming about risky startups. My mother was once a literature teacher, but now she spends her days at home, mostly participating in the Women's Association, visiting temples, and acting as the information hub for every gossip in the neighborhood. She always talks about my younger brother with pride, repeating how bright his future is, while I seem to be only a name mentioned as a warning. If you're a daughter and not outstanding, you'll suffer later. My younger brother, Brian, is my parents' golden hope. From a young age, Brian excelled in math, knew how to please adults, and was obedient just enough not to disappoint anyone. Since school days, Brian has continuously brought home awards, receiving big rewards from my parents and endless praise from relatives. They always use Brian as an example to remind me, "Look at your brother and learn. He listens and thinks of the family. Meanwhile, you're always daydreaming about nonsense." More than once, I heard my mother tell her friends, "My daughter is just ordinary. She's not like my son. The son is the one who brings honor to the family." Even when I got good grades, my achievements were called lucky, but if I failed, it was just my nature. I knew I wasn't like them. When I was a child, I loved to draw, was passionate about reading science books, and spent hours in the school library just tinkering with silly creative ideas that adults didn't care about. While my friends talked about their favorite singers, I was obsessed with articles about tech startups. My parents saw that as a sign of instability, something that should be eliminated as soon as possible. They forbade me from studying art, forced me to choose math classes, and constantly hired tutors to straighten out their daughter. At family dinners, every conversation revolved around Brian. What grades Brian got today, what praise the teachers gave, the scholarship he'd just received. As for me, whatever achievements I had were quickly overlooked, as if I were just a shadow in the house. My deepest memories are of my parents hosting family gatherings. The whole clan would gather: grandma, aunts, uncles sitting around the long dining table discussing the future. When they asked about me, everyone just sighed. The girl's grown up now, probably should find a stable job and get married soon. I smiled awkwardly, wanting to speak about the small projects I was working on, but no one listened. When Brian appeared, all eyes lit up. Brian is about to enter a prestigious university. Brian got a scholarship this year. Brian has a dreamy girlfriend. And I was just the one bringing water, clearing the table, then quietly retreating to my room. The older I got, the wider the gap between me and my family became. When Brian went to college, all my parents' attention focused on him. Mom prepared every meal, every outfit, and was ready to spend her savings for his summer travel experiences. I also went to college, but at an unremarkable tech school, following my own interests. No one asked me what I needed or wanted. No one encouraged me to keep trying. I still remember my 21st birthday. I quietly bought myself a small cake, lit candles, and sat by the window looking out at the street. That night, the whole family went out to celebrate Brian's scholarship, but no one remembered my birthday. Over the years, I gradually got used to being invisible within my own family. I began building my own world, quietly reading books, learning online, entering small startup idea contests. Sometimes I tried telling my mom about the things I was passionate about, like an idea to make data management software for small and medium businesses. My mom just shook her head. Those words poured cold water on all my dreams, but I never gave up. I thought maybe if I tried a little harder, I might finally be recognized. Yet every time, I only got skeptical looks, my dad's sighs, and my mom's reminders. Girls should just live practically. Maybe that's why I always felt out of place, even inside my own home. Brian became more and more successful. The family grew prouder of him, while I retreated deeper into dreams that never fully formed. Every failure, I didn't dare tell anyone because I knew it would only wound my pride further. Instead of asking if I was okay, my parents only asked, "When will you get a good job?" The child born only to be the backdrop for my brother's achievements. But despite the pain, I never thought of giving up, because I believed there are values that can't be measured by praise or grades, and I will prove that, no matter how far I have to walk alone. When I graduated from college, I clearly realized I couldn't rely on my family, nor wait for a miracle from them. The outside world was harsher than I thought, especially for a girl with no fame, no connections, carrying only an average diploma and a few unfinished ideas. But I still couldn't extinguish my desire to do something truly meaningful for myself and for society. I began applying everywhere, from small companies to big corporations. Most turned me down. Some even laughed when I talked about the tech projects I did in college. A girl wanting to code and start a business? That's tough, honey. Those words weren't much different from what I heard in my own family, but this time the sadness mixed with a spark of defiance. I decided to work at a small tech company, accepting a low salary and doing all sorts of unglamorous tasks just to learn and gain experience. After work, I spent hours studying, taking online courses in management, programming, marketing, all self-funded. Some days I was so exhausted that the moment I closed my laptop, I would fall asleep in my chair, waking up the next morning still in the same worn clothes. But I never once thought about giving up. Sometimes, amid failed experiments, I'd recall my mother's eyes when she talked about Brian, and my father's words, "Just don't do anything to disgrace the family." Those memories didn't just hurt, they fueled me to keep going, to never bow my head to anyone. For nearly 2 years, I worked quietly, learned, and saved every penny. Most of my old friends already had stable jobs, good salaries, cars, and houses, while I was still the trans family's eldest daughter living in a rundown rented room, commuting by bus, surviving on instant noodles. My parents had no idea what I was doing, occasionally calling to ask. Every time I returned home, I could clearly feel the scrutinizing eyes and whispered words from relatives. "She still hasn't settled down." Even during Tet, when the whole family gathered, no one asked about my work. The conversation revolved only around Brian's recent promotion to team lead, his beautiful girlfriend, and wedding plans. I smiled it off, hiding all my personal dreams just to keep my parents at ease. But inside me, the fire never died. I started taking freelance projects, writing simple management software for small stores, designing websites for a few family-run businesses. Though the money was little, each successful contract sparked a new hope inside me. Once, I helped a traditional grocery store digitize all their records. The owner was so happy he called to thank me for days. Those words of gratitude, those small achievements, were the first times I truly felt I had value. Gradually, I grew more confident and dared to take on bigger projects, dreaming of a product that could change how small and medium businesses operate in my hometown. I spent nearly all my savings buying a new laptop, then poured my heart into building an integrated management software idea for small businesses that later became Luminatech. During that time, I was completely alone. Friends criticized me as crazy, my parents kept urging me to find a stable job, and my cousin mocked, "No girl in this family can do anything big." Many nights, I cried alone, thinking about quitting, then telling myself, if I don't do this, I'll forever be Brian's shadow and never know how far I could go. Sometimes I borrowed money from friends to pay rent, ate instant noodles for a month just to buy hosting for my demo website. At times, I even tutored high school students at night to earn extra income because I didn't want to ask anyone for help and especially didn't want my parents to have reasons to criticize me. I realized the pain of being doubted by my own family was greater than any failure outside. But I chose to live my passion, to keep going even though the road ahead was unclear. When my first product launched, no one cared, no one believed I would succeed. Stores I approached all refused, saying they didn't need software or who would trust a girl in tech. I felt discouraged, but then I thought back to my childhood, how many times I was called head in the clouds, forced to quit art for mass, judged by my parents through Brian's success. Those memories pushed me to keep trying, to fix and improve my product day by day. As time passed, I started to get my first clients, people who believed in my sincerity and dedication. Gradually, word of mouth spread my software to more places, and a few small businesses began agreeing to trial it. The thank you messages and positive feedback gave me confidence that I was on the right path, even though that path was far from easy. While I struggled with each small project, Brian kept appearing on social media with photos from seminars, awards, and celebrations. My parents proudly showed off every achievement of his to everyone, but no one mentioned me. Yet for the first time, I didn't feel jealous. I just felt relieved that I finally dared to live true to my own dreams, even if no one recognized them yet. Those were the years I forged my own strength, overcoming every insult and failure, growing up from every fall. I understood that as long as I didn't give up, failure was just a pause on the journey toward real success, a success that didn't need anyone's judgment. Didn't have to please my family, but was for me to know I deserved my own dream. Even though my work gradually became more stable, I was still the failure in my family's eyes. I no longer expected engagement from my parents, nor a sympathetic look when I came home. It seemed to me that in their hearts, my efforts were nothing but stubborn foolishness, a proof of the disobedience of the eldest trend. Once, when I came home for my grandfather's death anniversary, as soon as I walked in, I overheard my mother whispering to a cousin, "Emily's changed jobs again. I don't know when she'll finally settle down. I've told her not to dream so much." I stood in the hallway, hearing every word clearly, feeling like a frosted glass separating me from the whole world beyond that door. My younger brother Brian had by then become the family's true pride. He worked at a big foreign company, studied abroad, held an MBA, and had a beautiful girlfriend from a prestigious family. Our family viewed Brian's upcoming wedding as a major event, a great honor they had long awaited to prove to society that the Tran family was not inferior to anyone. Months before, my mother was boasting everywhere about the grand engagement ceremony, about the future daughter-in-law from an Ivy League school and how Brian would soon be promoted to management. She even printed invitations to send to relatives on both sides, carefully choosing every dish, every flower, every dress for the party. I was still invited, but all my feelings were like a stranger, invited yet not belonging there. On the day of Brian's engagement, our large family home was brightly lit, guests poured in, laughter echoed throughout the rooms. I sat quietly in a corner, telling myself I would just come, congratulate, then leave early. But the atmosphere didn't let me rest. Relatives came one after another, all praising Brian and his beautiful fiancée. Meanwhile, I was only asked empty questions. "What are you doing these days? Do you have a boyfriend yet?" I answered them superficially, trying to force a polite smile, but all I got were pitying looks or regretful shakes of the head. "A woman who still hasn't settled down like this will have a hard life, dear." While everyone was raising their glasses in celebration, my mother deliberately pulled a group of close friends over to me, forcing a smile before introducing me. "This is Emily, my eldest daughter. She's doing this and that, but hasn't gotten anywhere yet. Her brother is about to become a manager and is getting married soon." Those words felt like salt rubbed into my heart in front of everyone. My mother gave a cold laugh. "She's just doing some random stuff. I hear she's into programming and business now, but who knows if she'll amount to anything." I stayed silent, swallowing each word painfully, looking at Brian smiling next to his fiancée, and watching my mother happily boasting about my younger brother's bright future. My chest, the peak of my hurt didn't come from outsiders, but from my own family. As the guests slowly thinned out, my mother came close to me, lowering her voice with a chilling calmness. "Don't do anything strange at your brother's engagement. Don't let anyone pay attention." It turned out that my presence wasn't to share in the joy, but only to serve as a backdrop for my brother's spotlight. While everyone gathered outside, I overheard a former friend of Brian talking to a group. "The eldest daughter of this family probably has nothing going for her. I hear she keeps failing, poor thing." No one defended me, not my parents, not even my own brother. Brian just stood there smiling, raising his glass as if there wasn't a sister sitting right next to him. Perhaps to him I was just a faint shadow, never worthy of pride. That night I went home alone, walking and wondering if I really was as useless as everyone thought. I recalled all the times I tried, the sleepless nights coding, the small contracts I managed to sign myself, the clients who had sent thank you notes. Yet in front of the whole world, all my efforts became failures, topics for my family to mock, compare, and deny. That was the first time I truly hit rock bottom of pain. Not because of society's scorn, but because the people I loved most dismissed my efforts, using coldness to cut off every small hope inside me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window of my small room, looking out at the pale streetlights, wondering if one day I'd be strong enough to no longer be hurt by those words. I realized the greatest pain wasn't failure in the market, but failure in trust within my family. But from that moment, I knew I had to change. I couldn't keep waiting for recognition from those who would never understand me. If I didn't stand up for myself, I would forever remain just a shadow in my brother's life. After Brian's engagement party, I no longer wanted to go home. The years of accumulated hurt seemed to reach their breaking point, drowning me in a tiredness so deep it felt like despair. In the days after, I avoided calls from my parents, even ignoring their perfunctory messages. I threw myself into work, from early morning until late at night, hoping the busyness would fill the growing emptiness inside. But the more I tried to forget, the more I remembered memories no one wanted to talk about. My 16th birthday forgotten because everyone was busy celebrating Brian winning a city contest. This first small award I won in college, but my mother only texted back, "Your brother was just chosen to represent the school in an international contest. So talented." Some nights, I would curl up by the window of my small rented room, staring at my phone screen lighting up with dozens of photos of family gatherings, toasting Brian and his soon-to-be wife. The unknown for sure. Is the under from me? Yes, it's known in every frame. I was always pushed to the sidelines. That thought sent chills down my spine, a mix of pain and sorrow, as if my name had been erased from the very place I called home. I began to withdraw from all contact with my family, refusing every invitation to meals or meetups. Even when my mother called just to ask, "When will you come to Brian's birthday?" I used work as an excuse to avoid it. I didn't want to hear any more about my brother's achievements, didn't want to be compared or branded a failure, and certainly didn't want to pretend to be happy in front of those who only hurt me. I moved to a smaller apartment and cut off contact with most old friends, because they only asked about my family, about Brian, and no one truly cared how I was doing. Once, in despair, I called a close friend from college. We sat together in a quiet cafe, and I told her about feeling abandoned, about the fear of not being good enough, not being worthy. She quietly listened, then said, "You have to live for yourself, Emily. Family is part of life, but they're not your whole life. You have the right to be proud of yourself, no matter what others think." Those words were like a small flame lit amid a cold winter night. I didn't suddenly feel stronger, but at least I knew I wasn't completely alone. Many nights afterward I sat writing in my journal, pages full of scattered thoughts, moments I wanted to quit, dreams left unfinished. I recalled every cold word from my mother, my father's disappointed eyes, the times my brother looked at me with pity. I asked myself, who am I living for? To one day earn a compliment from my mother, or because I truly believe in the path I've chosen? That question repeated over and over until even I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. My mother called just to accuse me of being heartless, not thinking about the family, never doing anything right but stubbornly independent. I remained silent, not answering a word, only hearing her sigh through the phone before hanging up. I understood all attempts to connect were only superficial. My mother needed a reason to prove I was wrong, not to truly understand how much I was hurting. After a long time of enduring, I decided to move far away, completely to another city. As I packed my things, I realized aside from a few clothes, an old laptop, and a stack of technical books, I had nothing left that belonged to my family. No shared photos, no keepsakes, not a single scrap of paper with my mother's handwriting. I sent a short message to the family group chat. "I'm moving to another city to start a new life. Don't worry about me, I can take care of myself. I will live my own life, whether you acknowledge it or not." After hitting send, I felt like a great burden had been lifted from my shoulders. On the day I left, I didn't cry, nor did I look back. I told myself, no matter how painful, I had to learn to live without needing approval from my relatives. If I couldn't be my parents' pride, I would be my own pride. The initial emptiness slowly filled with small plans. Finding a new home, starting work over, building relationships no longer tied to the shadow of my family. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in my life, I felt true freedom. A freedom that only comes when you accept letting go of the obsession with family. Perhaps the greatest pain is not being despised by others, but doubting yourself. I don't know how long it will take to forgive the old wounds, but I am certain I will never again let anyone else decide my worth. That is the first promise I have truly kept for myself. In the early days in the new city, I was like a blank sheet of paper. No one knew who I was. No one mentioned the name Brian or asked about the trans family. At first, that silence brought me both relief and loneliness. I walked through unfamiliar streets, breathing in the cold morning air, feeling like I had lost everything but also had the chance to start over. I rented a small room in an old apartment complex. My savings were low, so I counted every penny carefully, but I had never felt so free. Every morning when I woke up, I looked out at the sunlit window and reminded myself, today I would live for myself, not to please anyone else. I started my new job at a co-working space for young startups, where people came from all over the country, each carrying the dream of building something big. No one asked about my degrees, my family, or my background, only what I could do and whether my ideas were interesting enough. At first, I took on small projects. Web programming for a coffee shop, web programming for a young shop owner. Each contract signed, each sincere thank you from a client helped me regain confidence and lessen the haunting gaze of judgment from my past. I spent almost all my time working, researching, reading about startups, about the journeys of women who no one believed in, about failure, rising, and perseverance. Gradually, I began to meet genuine friends who understood me. Once I happened to chat with an older female founder in a cafe at the apartment complex. She shared stories of crushing failures, being mocked by friends, stopped by family, then laughed. If you don't dare to be different, you'll spend your whole life just supporting someone else's success. She became my first mentor, always reminding me to think big, dare to try, dare to fail without shame. I also met many young people like me, without parental support, having to struggle alone, learning to stand up after every fall. In late-night talks, I realized I was not alone. There were many who also felt lost and excluded just because they didn't meet their family's expectations. Like that, I poured all my heart into the Luminatech project, the small business management product I had long dreamed of. I worked tirelessly, accepted small contracts to cover living expenses, and nurture bigger dreams. Step by step, I perfected the software, tested it, fixed bugs, improved the interface. When my first customer gave positive feedback, I was so happy I cried. I was no longer living for anyone else, no longer chasing my mother's wishes, nor proving anything to my father or Brian. I just wanted to do what I believed was right. Even if I failed, I would fail on my own feet. Small achievements gradually began to appear. My software was trusted by a few local businesses. A small logistics startup signed a long-term trial contract, and word of mouth started to spread. I received emails from shop owners thanking me for helping them save time, manage better, and have more time for their families. Those simple words meant more to me than any award or certificate my family had previously used for comparison. I started rewarding myself with afternoons spent walking, sitting alone at a cafe reading books, learning about investing and financial management. Each passing day, I felt more clearly the value of freedom and growth. Sometimes, my mother would still call, her voice cold or distant at times. "What are you doing these days? Still don't want to come home?" I responded calmly, no longer feeling hurt by her reminders. My family sometimes messaged to check in, but I had learned to keep my distance, not sharing too much about successes or failures, simply saying, "I'm fine, don't worry." I understood that not everyone can change deeply ingrained thoughts passed down through generations, and I no longer needed to use my life to prove anything. One time, I was invited to participate in a young tech forum in the city. Standing on stage, presenting Lumina Tech in front of hundreds of people, I trembled, never imagining I would one day be heard and respected. After the presentation, a group of young people came to shake my hand, ask questions, and some even volunteered to collaborate unpaid just to learn. I was amazed to realize that, though I was neither wealthy nor famous, I had truly created meaningful value for the community, something I had never once heard anyone in my family say about me. I no longer felt too hurt when my mother mentioned Brian's success, nor was I bound by the shadows of the past. Instead, I built for myself a network of friends, mentors, and colleagues, people who appreciated my efforts, listened, encouraged, and were ready to support me whenever I felt weak. I also began helping young newcomers, sharing experiences of failure and how to rise again. Every time I looked back on the journey, I knew that my value was not in compliments or the recognition of others, but in my courage to live true to myself, strong, independent, and free. Time passed, and my life gradually stabilized. I no longer often thought about family, the tense dinners, or my mother's scrutinizing gaze. The days spent buried in work, meeting clients, and developing new products had helped me grow more than a decade of living under the expectations of loved ones. I was proud of myself. Sometimes, in late afternoons sitting at a familiar cafe, I still remembered my childhood, but the pain gradually transformed into gratitude. It was those wounds that made me the resilient and strong person I am today. I still kept in touch with Brian, but everything was very superficial. Occasionally, my younger brother would send me a few messages, talking about work or asking for a bit of tech advice. No one in the family asked if I was settled anymore, nor did anyone pressure me to come home. I thought everything had truly settled down, until one early autumn evening my phone suddenly rang with my mother's name lighting up the screen. She spoke more gently than usual, asking if I was free to attend Brian's wedding. I stayed silent for a while, then agreed to come, not for anyone else, but because I needed to close an old chapter myself. When I returned, everything at home seemed unchanged. Dad was still quiet, Mom was busy preparing everything, and Brian looked happy and radiant to see me. However, I could clearly sense a tense undercurrent, something fake behind the greetings and forced smiles. Mom handed me a party dress, reminding me, "Remember to be discreet at the party, don't say anything to trouble anyone. Our family is about to have a new daughter-in-law, and I want everything to be perfect." I smiled lightly, understanding that no matter how far I'd gone, in Mom's eyes, I was still someone who could ruin the family's image at any moment. At the party, a formal atmosphere enveloped the large living room. Relatives from both sides gathered, and Brian's friends and fiancée filled the space. From the moment I entered, I felt eyes following me, the curiosity of relatives who hadn't seen me in a long time, the scrutiny of outsiders. Mom walked me to every table, introducing me. "This is Emily, Brian's older sister. She works in tech, freelances a lot, isn't married yet, so she's busy." I smiled politely, barely caring how Mom described me, as I was used to being devalued whenever there was a family gathering. Occasionally, a few people asked about me, but mostly out of curiosity about my nowhere life. The party grew livelier toward the end. Brian was continuously praised for his career and his beautiful, capable fiancée. All the congratulations were for him, for the bright future the family had anticipated. I sat quietly near the back table, listening to conversations, occasionally catching someone glance at me, then whisper to their neighbor. Sometimes I met looks mixed with pity and disdain, feeling that after all these years, my place in the family had not changed. Just before the ceremony began, Mom pulled me aside to the porch and whispered, "Don't talk about work later. Our family doesn't want misunderstandings. Just let Brian be the center, okay?" I nodded quietly, no longer wanting to argue. I realized that what Mom had always wanted from me wasn't success, but merely a background figure in the family's perfect story. Returning to the party room, I saw Brian's friends chatting about technology and startups. Brian's fiancée, Sophia, stood in the middle, excitedly talking about emerging companies. I intended to sit quietly, but suddenly one of Sophia's friends turned to me and asked, "I heard you used to work in tech and had a startup." Under the curious eyes of the whole table, I just smiled. I built a small business management software, still developing it now. No one cared much. The conversation quickly returned to Brian and his projects. Sophia kept looking at me attentively, something sparkling in her eyes I couldn't quite read. Throughout the party, I gradually realized my presence was no different than before, placed for show, told only to keep things peaceful, constantly reminded to keep silent. Everything I had once been proud of meant nothing here. The atmosphere grew heavier when I overheard Mom whispering something to Dad, glancing toward me before quickly returning to her perfect smile for the relatives. I understood. The family never really wanted me to belong. They only needed me not to embarrass them. This time, I no longer felt pain, just like a cold spectator standing outside my own life. Yet, I also realized one thing. I had truly changed. No longer craving approval, no longer hoping for words of encouragement or comfort. I only wanted to maintain my boundaries, live true to myself no matter who chose to hide or deny that value. If my family needed me to stay silent to preserve their perfect dream, I was ready to do that, not because I was weak, but because I had learned true strength is knowing when to let go of what you cannot change. Brian's engagement party was reaching its climax. Laughter and congratulations echoed nonstop, mixed with the pride of my parents for my brother and the perfect future daughter-in-law. I sat quietly in a corner, occasionally nodding when someone passed by to greet me, sometimes forcing a smile at the empty praises people gave Brian. In my mind, the feeling of alienation grew clearer, as if I were attending someone else's party with no role other than that of a spare guest. The atmosphere grew heavier on my shoulders, with each small stab from my mother's glances, evasive comments, and the scrutinizing looks from relatives. I was almost resigned to keep silent until the end of the party, but then an unexpected moment happened. While everyone was chatting about the tech market, startups, and success stories, Brian's fiancée, Sophia, turned to look at me, her eyes shining with a strange skepticism. She quietly asked, "Emily, I've heard the name Luminatech before. You are Emily Tran, the founder of Luminatech, right?" That unexpected question was like an arrow piercing through the space filled with meaningless chatter, drawing all eyes toward me. The room suddenly fell silent. Breath seemed to stop. My mother, who always tried to hide everything about me, stood stunned, her face showing confusion and shock. Brian was speechless, and for the first time I saw those who had only whispered insults before now unable to hide their surprise and bewilderment. I took a deep breath, calmly looked at Sophia, and gently replied, "Yes, I am the founder of Luminatech." Sophia immediately exclaimed with excitement, "Oh my God, I know your software. My company is researching how to apply it. You truly inspire many young people. I never thought I'd have the chance to meet you here." Those words rang clearly in front of everyone, like a slap straight to my family's long-held prejudices and stereotypes. The whole room was silent. Eyes shifted from disdain to astonishment, then to awkwardness. My mother awkwardly pulled Brian's hand, but it was too late. Sophia asked louder, "Why isn't your family proud of her?" Lumina Tech was honored at last year's Tech Forum. The atmosphere turned extremely confused. The laughter and chatter of the guests were replaced by curious, bustling whispers. Relatives began murmuring among themselves. Those who had mocked me hesitated before asking about the project. Some guests even actively asked for business. Brian looked at me with bewilderment, while my mother appeared embarrassed, eyes red from shame mixed with anger. I calmly scanned the room, realizing I was no longer afraid of those eyes. I stood up, my voice clear, not loud, but every word decisive. "I know many here think I'm a failure, that for years I haven't accomplished anything. But everything I have achieved today isn't to please anyone, nor to become anyone's pride except my own and the dreams I dared to make real." The room remained silent. My mother burst into tears, but this time I no longer felt pain. She cried out of shame because the truth she had long tried to hide was exposed. Not out of concern for me. Brian stammered, trying to say something but ended up bowing his head silently. I looked at my mother, for the first time calm and confident, and clearly said, "You may always be proud of Brian and may never understand me, but from today, I will live for myself, not for anyone else. I don't need acceptance or apologies anymore. I know I am strong enough." After speaking, I placed my business card on the table, thanked Sophia for recognizing me, and gently said goodbye to everyone. I left the party, walking past the stunned eyes of the whole family, feeling as if a burden that had weighed on me for nearly 30 years had been lifted. On the way home, I felt a freedom and peace I had never known before. No one could make me feel small anymore. No one could keep me trapped in the darkness of denial. I knew I had truly grown, daring to stand up, to set boundaries, and to choose myself, even when the world around me still hadn't quite understood that. That night, I wrote myself a small letter. "Thank you, Emily, for never giving up. Thank you for daring to walk through the most painful days to find yourself. From now on, every path will be decided by me, whether or not anyone walks with me." And I knew, after all, that was the greatest victory of my life. A year has passed since that engagement party, and my life has changed in ways I never could have imagined. Lumina Tech grew steadily, and my small team expanded, gaining new companions, young tech enthusiasts ready to take on fresh challenges with me. We worked in a creative space, mornings filled with laughter, and late nights spent brainstorming ideas together. I was no longer just Emily Tran, the eldest daughter of the Tran family, but Emily, the founder, mentor, and eldest sister of a small family where everyone was respected, heard, and free to pursue their dreams. Occasionally, I receive messages from young strangers. "Sister, I've read your story. I've also been called a failure by my family. How can I believe I can change my fate?" Every time I reply, I remember myself from before, full of insecurity, confusion, and pain, and gently write back, "You just need to keep going, little by little. Your value isn't in others' recognition, but in what you've overcome, learned, and dared to change for yourself." Becoming a mentor to many young people is also my way of healing my own wounds. I've learned to listen, understand, and encourage others, just as I once wished to be supported when I was young. In my small, bright apartment, I grow a few flower pots and keep a little cat named Hope. Every morning, I wake to see Hope curled up on the chair, brew myself a cup of coffee, and smile at my reflection in the mirror. Because I understand, everyone lives within the limits of their beliefs, and I have stepped out of that cage to rewrite my own story. My family gradually reached out again, but this time, I set clear boundaries. My mother sent long messages, sometimes apologizing, sometimes sharing fears she had hidden. I read every line, no longer feeling suffocated or needing an apology. I simply replied, "I'm fine, Mom, don't worry. I'm truly happy." My father sent a short email calling me daughter for the first time without any advice or admonishment. Brian probably understood many things too. He congratulated me when my company was honored at a tech event and occasionally asked about my life and work, but I no longer needed anyone's recognition to believe in myself. One weekend afternoon, I stood on the rooftop of the building, watching the city spread beneath the pale sunlight. I remembered the days I just wanted to disappear from this world, the nights I cried until dry from being rejected by those closest. I no longer wait for a perfect family, nor dwell on expectations that were never mine to begin with. I know I have built a new home, one not bound by blood but united by love, sharing, and respect. I choose to hold on to the best parts, learn to forgive the past, and dare to move forward, even when no one applauds. If you who are watching this video have ever been called a failure, have ever felt invisible within your own family, I want you to believe this. Your value is not found in anyone else's eyes. You are not alone. The journey of growing up may be long and filled with tears, but as long as you dare to stand up for yourself, the world will change in the most unexpected ways. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt like I did, please share below. Don't hesitate to express your pain or your pride. Sometimes the bravest thing is not forgiving others, but choosing to love yourself.